Welcome to Cyber Bytes, your weekly dose in the latest in cybersecurity news. I'm your host, Edwin Kwan, and we've got a few interesting stories for you today. We'll be covering a Google data breach exposing millions of records. We'll be talking about credential stealing, Ruby gems, universities locking out their entire population, a critical WinRAR 0-day shaking the foundations of file archiving. So stick with me as we unravel what happened, who's behind it, and how it might affect you. Let's kick off with the big news. So Google has confirmed a significant data breach following a campaign targeting Salesforce CRM customers, with the hacking group Shiny Hunters and their allies claiming to have stolen 2.5 million records containing business contact details of prospective Google Ads clients. What's notable about this is that the attackers didn't get payment details or actual Google Ad account data, but basic business information such as company names, phone numbers, and sales notes. The attack is also part of an escalating series of intrusions, with Shiny Hunters combining forces with Scattered Spiders. So Scattered Spider is known for social engineering, and that's kind of how they put this off. They use voice phishing, posing as IT support over the phone, and then they trick employees into linking a malicious version of Salesforce Data Loader app. And once in, they siphon entire Salesforce databases and send extortion demands via email. What's ironic is that Google's own threat intelligence group had warned about this very wave in June, only to become a victim themselves a few weeks later. The attackers, after the initial database grabs, upgraded their methodology, switching from exploiting Salesforce Data Loader to using custom Python scripts that enabled faster and more efficient data extraction. To date, Google hasn't said exactly how many people were exposed. They did note, however, that the stolen data was basic and largely publicly available business information. Still, this breach highlights just how vulnerable even tech giants can be to coordinated social engineering and cloud data attacks. So what's the impact of this? So even if your organization isn't as large as Google, the risk of cloud-based business tools such as Salesforce should be top of mind. The lesson: train your staff, review your third-party integration controls, and don't underestimate the power of a convincing phone call. So for our next news, we're going to be talking about supply chain attacks that are targeting developers. The researchers at Socket have uncovered 60 malicious Ruby gems that had been downloaded over 275,000 times. Those gems are targeting mainly South Korean developers building automation tools for platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Telegram, and WordPress. So here's how it played out. The gems with names like WP_posting_duo or TG_send.zion pose as legitimate automation tools, but secretly they're harvesting credentials from login forms and sending them to the command and control servers. Each of those packages represent a functioning GUI. It provided the promised automation, so it does what it said it does, but underneath, it stole plain text usernames and passwords, device MAC addresses, and package names, allowing attackers to track their campaign performance. Logs of stolen credentials were found on sale on Russian-speaking darknet forums, confirming the data was being monetized almost immediately. Even after discovery and reporting by Socket, at least 16 packages stayed available on rubygems.org, and it shows the persistent risks of open source repositories. This campaign follows a spat of similar attacks back in June, where Fastlane, an automation tool, was typo-squatted, targeting Telegram bots development. So as a developer, you need to be careful. Always scrutinize third-party libraries, check publishers' reputation and release histories, and lock your dependencies to known safe versions. As we know, open source is powerful, but it's not invulnerable. So vigilance is everything. So let's move on to our next story, which would be in the higher education space. The University of Western Australia locked out all staff and students and mandated password resets after detecting unauthorized access to central password systems this past weekend. The fallout, IT and security teams acted fast, moving from containment to investigation. For now, they believe only password data was accessed, and there's no evidence yet of other systems being compromised. The university runs a central access management system, though it hasn't confirmed if this was targeted. Regardless, the scope implies core authentication infrastructure was involved. The lockout and the reset disrupted the campus, even leading to extensions for student assessments. So far, no ransom has been demanded, and the university's CIO says there's no indication of ransomware. This incident echoes a previous hack back in 2022, which also involved student data, suggesting that higher education still remains as a prime and persistent target for cyber attackers. So let's move on to our next story. For everyone who thinks that file archiving was safe, you need to think again. A critical WinRAR 0 day is being actively exploited, prompting an emergency update to version 7.13. The flaw allows attackers to manipulate archive extraction paths, execute arbitrary code, and achieve persistence simply by crafting malicious RAR files with special alternate data streams. The vulnerability was discovered by ESET, who noted active exploitation by Russian-aligned group Romcom. Spearphishing emails targeting industries like finance and logistics delivered weaponized archive files, sometimes hiding the attack behind harmless-looking job application lures. The attackers leveraged multiple techniques, deploying malicious DLLs or link files to system directories, using anti-analysis tricks, and ensuring the payload only ran on real-world machines. The exploit was advertised for $80,000 on Russian dark web forums, and it was weaponized rapidly, including chaining with earlier WinRAR vulnerabilities for more sophisticated attacks. And there's also parallel updates for 7-zip, matching a symbolic link handling flaw, adding to the urgency for everyone to update their file archivers. The bottom line is these tools are ubiquitous. Everyone uses them, meaning attackers will continue prioritizing exploits whenever patch speed lags. And finally, let's wrap up with a quick headline. More than 29,000 Microsoft Exchange servers remain unpatched against CVE 2025-53786, which is a high-severity hybrid cloud vulnerability that could lead to total domain compromise. Despite an emergency directive from US federal authorities, thousands of servers in the US, Germany, Russia, and beyond have not applied the necessary hotfixes and may be vulnerable to stealthy privilege escalation. Microsoft's Secure Future initiative urges immediate updates, inventory checks, and internet disconnects for unsupported Exchange environments. Because the risks are high, attackers could forge trusted tokens, escalate privileges, and move laterally between on-prem and cloud, effectively owning your domain, often without detection. So if you're running Exchange, review Microsoft guidance now. Patch your servers and don't wait for the attackers to make the next move. And that's a wrap for this week's Cyber Bytes. Thanks for listening. Until then, stay secure, stay vigilant, and keep tuning in to Cyber Bytes.